franktalks.com.
This program does not represent the views of this station and may be considered offensive to some listeners. This program may contain mature subject matter, including frank discussions of controversial topics. It is intended for mature, open-minded audiences. Discretion is highly advised. This program is entirely independently produced by and is copyrighted by Frank. It is broadcast here under license.
We have a really great show lined up for you today. Our guest is Mr. Ted Wright, who has dedicated a good portion of his life and his career in helping other people, and we're going to get to him. Let's go right now to Mr. Wright. Mr. Wright, welcome to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles.
Glad to be here, Frank.
Mr. Wright, we've gotten a chance to talk before the show. You've told me many interesting things about your background. So the first question I'd like to ask you is that you've dedicated so much of your life. You right now, with your skills and with your experience, could be working a number of different jobs, making a lot more money than you're making right now, but yet you choose the lifestyle you have so you can help other people. My first question to you is why?
It serves, it fills a niche in my soul, and I'm not a spiritual person. I don't believe in God. However, there is a certain spirituality, and what happens is that I know that I have skills and things that other people can't do. And when I look at someone who is just totally out to lunch on something, and I can help them, and I make their life a little bit happier, it makes me think that this is what life is about. And it just, I can live through their eyes. Like when you see someone come to me in there and is totally gone, they don't know what the heck they're going to do, and their two kids are playing there, totally oblivious to what's going on with their parents. I know if I solve that problem, these kids are going to stay happy. And that's what happens. And I've had lots of parents cry in front of me, and I say, look, I'm doing this to help your kids because I know they have no clue. Now I'm going to keep you in your home.
Now, your specialization is in landlord and tenant law,
Yes.
but you also help individuals to understand the proceedings in the Canadian court system.
Oh, yeah. Like most of the time, as soon as anyone finds out that they're going to have to go to court, they fill their pants. They go, what am I going to do? And essentially what you have to do is just back off, relax, present what you have to do, and then I can say, okay, this is what the law will approximately rule on. And you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things or whatever, and then it makes it so much easier, then people can breathe easier. We just had one person who was, they bought a house and the contractor didn't do what they're supposed to do. And I helped them prepare for court. And when they went to court, the judge said, I've never seen anyone prepared so well. And it just sort of like blew them away. It's still continuing. It's not over for sure. But the judge couldn't believe how well prepared. They actually did everything I told them to do. And that's what's wonderful because it makes it so much easier.
I'd like you, if you would, to tell me a little bit about your background and where your first interests in law came up and how you've proceeded through that interest to your present position at the Westmount Legal Clinic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've had about 10 careers in my life. In 1987, I had my own troubles with landlord-tenant. So I phoned up the Arnold Bennett hotline. And so I was talking with him. I got the information I needed. And then he let out a huge sigh. And remember, he was a city councilor, had been a city councilor like for 15 years. And I said, well, I've been on board of directors and stuff like that in the past. And I said, well, I can offer you a certain amount of my time for a period of about 1 month, 2 months, because I'm working on a film. And he said, well, how about morning and afternoon or whatever? I said, well, I'll check with the people I'm working for. And I eventually found out I could do it. I had the rental board pamphlets, and he said, okay, you're going to work on the hotlines. Never met the guy, and I worked on the hotlines.
So Arnold Bennett was one of your first mentors in this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was after that, I worked there for a year for no pay, just doing it on a part-time basis, and I was still doing the other things. And then he went away on vacation. He said, would you take over for me when I'm on vacation? And remember, he's working with the City of Montreal City Councilor. So for the time on vacation, all of a sudden, I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff for the City of Montreal and taking care of the west end of Montreal for vacation time periods. And when he came back, all of a sudden people are still calling for me, and it sort of threw him off. And I said, well, Arnold, you told me to take over, so I'm like, I'm in there. I'm calling everybody to get everything done, like just for you. I'm calling for you. And that's how it started right there.
Now, tell me a little bit about what you were actually doing when you were replacing Arnold Bennett for that period of time.
Okay, to replace Arnold, you would get people who are calling up saying there's trouble, where's the garbage? They're not picking up the garbage. Look at this big hole in front of my, I've got this huge mound of dirt that shouldn't be there. Look what's happening to the swings in the park. All sorts of stuff like that. And you say, well, okay, where are you? What's your address? What's your phone number? And I'd say, okay, I would call the local city department or whoever had to do it and say, this is the problem, talk to that person, get back to me, let me know what's going on. And then you make sure that the city councilor whose district it is, you call up their machine and say, this is what I've done, this is the person I've called. And so in other words, you just back everything up. And I don't think they were used to having someone make a trail, so everybody had to do stuff or else they'd look bad. And I didn't do it that way, that's the best way to do things. I mean, you have to let people know what you're doing all the time, and that's what happened. Anything like traffic tickets, explaining traffic signs, all that kind of stuff.
So after you replaced Arnold Bennett and did that job for, what, approximately a year?
Yeah.
What happened next that eventually led you to the Westmount Legal Clinic?
Okay. What happened was that they liked what I did so much that Arnold approached all the city councilors in the West End and said, we've got research budget, money and everything. Let's hire this guy to do whatever the heck we want in the background of us. And so they all put money in, and I eventually ended up earning, this is like 1988, $400 a week just doing this. So I left film, where I was working at that time somewhere around $700, $750. That's the infancy of film. So they had very few people, and if they got you and you did stuff, they wanted to pay you to keep you there. And so I lost money and went there and just did that for approximately 3 years. They'd pay me and I'd do whatever the hell they wanted.
And once the 3 years were up, what came next?
Okay, what came next was that Arnold Bennett did not get reelected. He lost an election by a few votes, and so he was out. But then the city of Montreal hired him and I to essentially take care of the West End under the SHDM, the Société d'Habitation et Développement de Montréal, as looking for buildings that they could acquire and house people, take it off the housing market. And so I used to inspect buildings, do whatever I had to. They essentially said, here's a pile of books. This is all about the laws you have to enforce, what you have to know, everything in the background, how to do inspections. Here's this stuff, see you in 2 months, and that's it. So that's where the law started, right there.
And right now you're at the Westmount Legal Clinic. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how people can get in contact with you for the Westmount Legal Clinic?
Okay. The Westmount Legal Clinic was started by Bob Jones and Francine Poirier in 1993. And essentially it's a non-profit group that helps people understand their case in court so they don't have to spend like $150 talking to a lawyer. They give a donation, $10 or $20. We give them 20 minutes. We tell them exactly what you have to do. And it does that now. Like now there's up to 8 people that are involved, and that's essentially what we do every week on a Wednesday between 3:30 and 6:30. No appointments, but we just take you and say, this is what we do for you. Go ahead, go out and do what you have to do. If you want to hire us outside here, you got to pay regular rates, but other than that, it's we donate that for you.
Now, this type of lifestyle you lead, again, you've already mentioned that you took almost a 50% pay cut.
Yeah.
In making that switch. I got to ask still, I know you told me that it fills a certain part of you, but there's got to be something more to that. I mean, you've really made a change in your life, and that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, don't remind me sometimes, because it's hard, because I know that I can be screwed over by people just because I don't have money. But I'm really lucky that I come from a religious philosophical mindset, plus I'm from a comfortable middle class background, so I don't have a mentality that is deprived, even though I'm deprived according to some people. But it's a question of, what do you want to do, something that counts in life. Some people can go through life and they have little intellectual awareness, little thought process that goes on, and what they do is say, well, I'm going to do that for me, and yay me. And then when something happens that they don't like, they go, oh, that's not very good, poor me. And you have to get out of that mindset and just say, sure, poor you, but you can still do something. And that's essentially what I do, is I get out there and I'll say, I'm going to do stuff. Like, you would never know by looking at me that I have several chronic diseases. However, I do. And someone today just told me that they were worried about that they were going to die and get really sick and everything. And I said, is this the first time you've had a health crisis in your life? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, it gets easier after you get used to it. I've been told I'm going to die 4 times. So what? The first time I went really nutso on it and drank and smoked dope and vomited, and I said, I don't care after. The second time was, third time I went, tell me something new. And the fourth time was, okay, you say I'm going to die, I got like 3 weeks, okay, call me tomorrow. I really have these, I have to go and shop, and I got other stuff that don't even bother me with it, because it essentially it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because you're going to do something, and that's why your life has to be worth something. If you want to waste it, go ahead and waste it. So I've taken a hit on the financial side, but I'm telling you, I mean, at the Westmount Legal Clinic, we've had people come in there that are going to commit suicide, and I've talked them through it. One girl, 53 slashes on her wrists. This starts off as a rental case, and I said, what's really going on? And she said, whatever, all about her case. And then she told me how she tried to commit suicide, pills, and I said, well, the good thing about those 53 slashes are that you're not dead, you chose to live.
We are talking with Mr. Ted Wright, who has dedicated his life in helping people. He currently is a coordinator of the Westmount Legal Clinic. We'll be back right after this.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the Adult Male Virgin Seminar and Telephone Consultations. Guys, if the only breast you ever touched was in a bucket of chicken, you need the Adult Male Virgin Seminar. If the only thing you've licked recently has been your fingers to turn the pages of a book, you need the Adult Male Virgin Seminar. If the only female body part you are familiar with wears a cape, can fly, or has superpowers, you need the Adult Male Virgin Seminar. If you think the G-Spot is the name of a new club, you need the Adult Male Virgin Seminar. If the words missionary conjures up images of guys in long robes, you need the Adult Male Virgin Seminar. If the only sensation your fingers have had are pressing the buttons on your remote control, then you need the Adult Male Virgin Seminar. Do you know what it means when a woman asks you up to her place for coffee? If you think that she is thirsty for caffeine, then you definitely need the Adult Male Virgin Seminar. Only available at franktalks.com. Frank helps adult boys become men.
From Loser to Seducer is the story of Frank B. Kermit. This book marks the triumph of a nice guy over most of his inner demons. This includes going from being a loser to managing 5 lovers at the same time, his first Valentine's date with 2 women at the same time, and getting back the one that got away. Want to learn how you can change your life? Buy this book at franktalks.com.
Guys, does your bachelor pad look as frightening as an Elvis convention? Then you need the Pimping Your Pad Seminar. Do you own a twin bed and still love your Star Wars sheets? Then you need the Pimping Your Pad Seminar. Is the only source of artificial light in your bachelor pad the bare, dusty bulb hanging from the ceiling? Then you need the Pimping Your Pad Seminar. Do your friends walk into your apartment and think you have been robbed? Then you need the Pimping Your Pad Seminar. Do you think that minimalist means barren as the Gobi Desert? Then you need the Pimping Your Pad Seminar. If your bathroom is home to a colony of anything, then you need the Pimping Your Pad Seminar. The Pimping Your Pad Seminar and telephone consultations, only available at franktalks.com.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. We're in studio today talking with Mr. Ted Wright, who has dedicated a good portion of his life to helping people. Let's get back to Mr. Ted Wright, our guest of this week. Mr. Wright, during the break, told me something very interesting about your past, that at one time you thought about becoming a priest.
Yeah, I was brought up in the Roman Catholic religion. I was taught by brothers and nuns, and I still believe I have a calling anyway. What it's called is a vocation to the priesthood. And I thought, around 11 or 12 or 13, that I had a calling to be a priest. Now, I never was an altar boy. That didn't interest me at all. But being a priest was, and that means like saving people, helping people, making sure they see their way through the myriad of philosophical difficulties. Another way of helping people. If people know what confirmation is, you're ordained into the quote-unquote army of Jesus Christ, they make you take these various promises not to do stuff. And they said to us, you'll promise not to drink alcohol until you're 21. And remember, I'm 11 years old, and I said, well, wait a minute. I'm not going to promise that because I don't know. And they'd never had an 11-year-old say that before. And I said, I'm going to try, but I can't really say. And then, well, okay. And they just let it slide. And I went, oh, okay. And then, so I started to want to be a priest and went through preliminary stuff and everything. And in our class of 27, there were 9 of us who questioned various things. And we're talking about women's involvement in the church, pleasure between people, all sorts of stuff like that. And they sort of encouraged us by saying, well, we don't think that maybe you want to be a priest. And, well, we did, but that's where the idea of helping people has come from. So it's been with me since I've been about 11 or 12. And if you give me something to say, well, do you want to help someone or make $100? Often I'll help someone. I'll try to make the $100 later, but I'm quite willing to forego money. I had a case the other day where, wanted a letter written, so I said, okay, $75. And then I eventually did 3 for her for the same price, just because I thought it was legally required. And so I just told her, don't tell people I do this cheap, please. And but I wanted to help her, and that comes directly from me feeling like I want to dedicate my life to something, which is helping people.
Now, something else you told me during the break is that your name, Ted or Edward, has a special meaning, and it's just is it a coincidence, or did that start you off on the path you're on now?
No, it's a coincidence. Or about 22, I just said, what the hell do my names mean? The name Edward means protector. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, and that's what I essentially do, is protect people. Another one of my names is Vincent, which is a conqueror. Another one, I have Polish heritage, is Stefan, which means king. And another one, Thomas the Doubter. I mean, I went, holy mackerel, this encapsulates my life, what I'm doing. And I just said, what is numerology something? Is nameology, or whatever you call it, is it a precursor to existence? And if you look at it, I mean, like, I sit there, I don't believe what people say. Like, prove it to me. I mean, that's like a sine qua non of my existence. You prove it to me, then I'll start listening to you. Otherwise, walk on. And one of the things I do is I really try hard to overcome who I think is nasty. And the other names, protector and king, I mean, I can't say I have a regal attitude, but I certainly believe I'm better than a lot of people. And I know I am, because I'm more intelligent, etc., etc. And I have no fears or qualms about saying it. If you know stuff, you know stuff. That's all there is to it. So that's just the background of my names.
Something else I'd like to explore here with you, and that is in this lifestyle that you have chosen. Obviously, you've made a number of sacrifices. I'd like to know, what are some of those major sacrifices? What are some of the obstacles you face having this lifestyle as opposed to the other lifestyles you could have chosen?
One of the obstacles I face is in personal relationships, because people want security in their lives, and if you want to go out with a woman, often they look at your bottom line. And my bottom line isn't great anymore. It used to be really decent, but not anymore. I don't own a building anymore or anything like that. So I have a precarious existence at times. So that's one of the things, because people need security in their lives, and if you don't have financial security, it's dangerous, if nothing else. And just not having money, it just puts you over the barrel that you have to really be careful all the time.
We're talking with Mr. Ted Wright, who's the coordinator of the Westmount Legal Clinic and who has dedicated his life to helping people. We'll be right back.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the Calibrated Storytelling Seminar. Have you ever felt tongue-tied when talking to a woman and did not know what to say next? This seminar provides the structure to create personalized stories that connect to a woman's emotional needs. Calibration is about putting people into the categories and then modifying your behavior. Do you want to learn how to be truthful about who you are, but in an interesting and seductive way? If you want women to like you for the real you, then this seminar is for you. The Calibrated Storytelling Seminars and telephone consultations, only available at franktalks.com.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the Personalized Symbolic Peacocking Seminar. Guys, do you think that your father has a great sense of style? Are blue jeans and a clean t-shirt your idea of dressy? Then you need the Personalized Symbolic Peacocking Seminar. Does 1982 live in your closet? Do you own clothes that have more holes in them than a slice of Swiss cheese? Then you need the Personalized Symbolic Peacocking Seminar. Look at the contents of your closet. If you think that navy blue and dark green are your colorful clothes, then you need the Personalized Symbolic Peacocking Seminar. When you pick up your date for that night out on the town, does she cringe at your wardrobe? If you think that ladies might wonder if you're colorblind, or if your girlfriend has to remind you to wear a clean item of clothing, then you definitely need the Personalized Symbolic Peacocking Seminar. The Personalized Symbolic Peacocking Seminar and telephone consultations, only available at franktalks.com.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Pimping Your Pad Seminars. Decorating your bachelor apartment. Your home and the way you live is an extension of your sexuality. Frank will show you, with pictures of his own home, what women look for that identifies you as a potential partner. Frank looks at everything from theme rooms to furniture placement and space management to pets to the organization of your bathroom to get women who want to spend the night. The Pimping Your Pad Seminars and telephone consultations, only available at franktalks.com.
We're talking with Mr. Ted Wright, who has dedicated his life to helping people. He's currently the coordinator of the Westmount Legal Clinic. Ted, this question comes from Karen. The question that she has is, can you tell us about the law as it pertains to dogs? Landlord and tenant law as it pertains to dogs.
Okay, sure. First, you have to look in your lease to see if you're allowed to have an animal. If you're allowed to have an animal, you can have an animal. However, that animal cannot disturb anyone else or cause any kind of legal problem. If you cannot have an animal, it shouldn't be there. Now, what kind of problems can dogs cause? Well, they can bark a lot and disturb sleep. They can bite people. We've had that happen. They can defecate or urinate in the hallways, even in your apartment. We had one place where the person dedicated a room as their sandbox. I know that sounds bizarre, but that's what happened. They dedicated the room. We have another case where the landlord or the tenant has just let the dog go in the backyard all during the winter. I actually saw it myself on the weekend. There's got to be 60 or 70 piles of stuff there. And I told him, this is against the law. Inspector comes in here, you're going to have difficulty. So for Karen, you can have a dog, but you can't let your dog break any law. You can't let your dog disturb anybody else. You can't let any kind of mess build up whatsoever, smells or anything like that. And believe me, you can be evicted if you aren't taking care of your dog or if you have an animal when the animal is not allowed to be there as per the lease contract.
Can you be refused the opportunity to live in a place if you have an animal and they don't want animals there?
Sure, because when you're signing a contract is an agreement. The landlord owns that building, owns that apartment, says, okay, I'm only letting you in here, but you can't have an animal. And that becomes part of the contract. So if the landlord says that, there's nothing in the Quebec Charter of Rights. The Quebec Charter of Rights means people, not animals. So your history, walk on, you got to find a new place or another place.
All right, thank you very much. Now let's get back to the topic we were talking about just before that last music break. We were talking about the sacrifices and the obstacles that you have to deal with in order to live the lifestyle you do. and you said something really, really poignant about making it difficult for you to enter into relationships because of the lack of security.
Oh yeah, I mean, people want security in their lives. People need security in their lives, and you know, I do a lot of things. I've got a very high media profile, right? And people always assume that I have loads of money. Well, I don't, and I'd love to have loads of money, but so that's what happens. Like when I get invited to something, I mean, and they say it's only $250 for the ticket, Teddy. Come on, you and your wife can come. And I say, well, I'm not married. So for them, they ask me like it's a fundraiser, $500. I mean, gee whiz, you know, like $500 is not quite my rent, but it's like still, you know, you can't go. And so if I had the money, believe me, you would see me even have a higher profile, because I know a lot of people. And that's part of the difficulty. And you have to learn to accept that no matter what kind of qualities or possibilities that happen, if you don't do what society requests of you to do in order to have a certain lifestyle, you won't get where you think you should be or where people expect you to be. And you have to sit back and say, well, I guess I'm going to swallow that and just live internally with my own spirituality and do the things that are important to me. And that's what you have to learn to live with. It's not easy, and it's not completely acceptable. But when it comes down to it, I have very, very few regrets. I mean, because like you do stuff, and like don't bother me. I mean, when it comes down to it, I'm stronger than a lot of people. I mean, I've been faced with my own death 4 times. And so what's my attitude? I don't much care. So what? I give presentations often, and one of the questions that were asked, I gave it to a high school, and they said, well, how do you want to be remembered? And my answer, I just answered, I wasn't surprised to me. I said, I don't care how you remember me. I've done so much stuff. I've helped millions and millions and millions of cases with all the time been on radio and TV, and I'm talking millions. And I just said, I don't care how you remember me at all, because it's totally irrelevant to me. And I was told afterwards by the staff of the school, they talked about you for weeks because everybody else comes in saying, this is how I want to be remembered, and you just didn't care. And I said, well, it's the truth. And that's what you have to do. If you're true to your own being, and I mean really true, the worries that you have on a spiritual level, they dissipate, and your life is so much lighter. And for me, helping people, I have a light existence. I mean, health-wise, no. Money-wise, no. But believe me, philosophically, spiritually, I am so light. I don't have worries. I mean, I essentially follow what I believe, and I really try hard not to have compromises or inconsistencies in my application of my own personal philosophy. That's all.
This is beautiful, man. This is you're touching me in a place, man, that's like wow.
Well, no one asked me those questions. I mean, that's such a rare question to be asked for me. I mean, if I never thought we'd talk about this.
Well, you did mention that you have a semi-high profile position in most media. You've been interviewed on radio and television numerous times. 500
plus, maybe 1,000 plus. I don't count anymore. I don't even watch myself anymore. I don't listen to myself.
You've written for various newspapers and been featured in other newspaper articles.
Oh yeah, I've been featured. I mean, I'll be on Télé-Québec on next week, I guess next Monday night, talking about saying another way of helping people. Come on, give them better French courses. Help them learn to live in this society. And I'm really strong about that. And it's just like another thing. And like I won't watch it. I mean, I even forget to tell people I'm on because it happens so often.
And despite all of this attention, you still have to deal with the problems like everybody else. I mean, you've mentioned your health as being an issue 4 times, having to face your own death.
Yeah.
If you feel comfortable with that, would you mind sharing a little bit of that? Or
okay, sure. I had kidney problems since I was 22 or 23. Okay, so fine. My kidneys are function like someone who's 80. I remember I said, gee whiz, I was at Concordia radio station at that time, 1985, and we did a kidney show, and I was a kidney guest. And then I said, geez, my kidneys are killing me. I went there. They did the test. I have to get the test results, and the doctor looks at me, and he goes, you're coming into the hospital for an operation in 2 weeks. Looks at me, he goes, put your affairs in order. And I went, what? He goes, put your affairs in order. And I said, you mean to tell me that you think there's a good likelihood I'm a dead man walking? And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, oh. And he explained why, and I went, okay. So I didn't cry. I went outside. I almost cried in front of Vic, and I said, what the hell? Then I went to a girlfriend's up north, drank, smoked dope, ate things, vomited my guts out, and then I didn't care. I said, whatever. And when I woke up after the operation, I looked around and said, hey, I'm alive. And that was it. And is that, I mean, and, you know, that's just one time that happened. I mean, I can tell you another time. The doctor came into the office, and like because of your kidneys, they show things that other people think are cancer. So they said, you've got cancer, you got to do this and this and this. And I said, cancer, that means, what you're telling me is I'm dead because it's kidneys and everything. They said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, it's happened before, you know. So I was not pleasant. Didn't feel good. So I had to wait 2 weeks for the final results. And I got the results, and I said, wait, these look like the other results. Hold on. And I went to my kidney specialist, and he looks at it and says, yeah, that's normally you. And I said, well, this guy told me that. And he blew up. Right in front of me, phoned up and said, what are you doing? Look at the goddamn file. This is his way his kidneys function. Don't tell him he's going to die, you idiot. And so for 2 weeks, I'm sitting there going, well, I'm dead again. You know, and so that puts it in perspective. And the third time it was like, yeah. And the fourth time I just said, give me a break. I got other stuff to do. Who cares? Because we never know from 1 second to the next what's going to happen. So that's another reason why I try to do something that is valuable right now at this moment. Another thing, because of all this stuff, I don't think of my life in 2 months. I know 1 month from now, like if you can imagine living this, I could be an invalid. 1 month, that's month to month I have to live with this. And at some point, you don't care. I'm going to do stuff. Don't bother me. And that's it.
Ted, thank you so much for sharing such personal information. I find it incredibly inspiring, and I hope that anybody listening right now is just as inspired. Thank you very much to Mr. Ted Wright. You really have such inspiring words, especially with everything that's happened to you and the fact that you're still trudging out there and still helping people, even though that you've had to give up a lot in the face of great adversity. I commend you on that. I absolutely applaud you. I would appreciate it if you would give some contact information for the Westmount Legal Clinic for anybody listening that may want to seek out your help. Sure. The Westmount Legal Clinic is every Wednesday between 3:30 and 6:30, every Wednesday at the Westmount YMCA 4585 Sherbrooke West. Every Wednesday 3:30 to 6:30, Westmount YMCA. It's donation-based. If you want to contact us, Westmount Legal Clinic at hotmail.com, Westmount Legal Clinic at hotmail.com. Fax 514-277-8403. 514-277-8403 is our fax number. You've been a great guest. We look forward to having you again in the future on this program. Compliments of Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. Ladies, do you want the man in your life to understand you on your level? Do you want your man to be able to listen to and address all of your emotional needs? Show him how much you really want your relationship to be the best it can be. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test makes a perfect gift. The book, written by a man for men, is endorsed by every woman that reads it. This book is a guide for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating, and relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com. Coaching available in person, by phone, and by Skype. For singles, couples, and alternative lifestyles, franktalks.com.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
What do you do when you feel like a fool? When your heart has been broken again? Pick up the phone or get onto Skype and talk on a private session. Yeah, get a little help from Frank Talks. Whoa, whoa, get by with a little help from Frank Talks. You gotta try a little help from Frank Talks. What do you do when your love goes away? Try coaching one-on-one. How do I sign up to turn things around? Just sign up at franktalks.com. Yeah, get by with help from Frank Talks. I get by with little help from Frank Talks. Time to try a little help from Frank Talks. Does it cost a lot of money? It's the best rate going around. Could it cost a lot of money? Oh, it's worth every cent that you will put down. Yeah, Frank Talks. Oh, you got to go to get your help from franktalks.com. Yeah, yeah. Would you believe that Frank gets results? Yes, we're certain. Just read the reviews. Frank knows his stuff, and Frank's several goods. Good love can soon come to you.